Hello everyone, we can go ahead and get started with today's Quick Learn. Today we're talking about getting started with OneNote 2013. I'm Susie Johannes, I'm a technology instructor here at KUIT. Also with me here we have Tennille Fincham, who's also a technology instructor. I believe we've met many of you either in last week's Quick Learn or in some of the instructor-led classes that we've done up to this point. Both of us are using OneNote, so we can provide some experience and knowledge on what we do, and also in this session we'll be covering just the basics of how to get started. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about what is OneNote 2013 and then why use OneNote 2013. We're going to get into a little bit of the notebooks and organization, so how it's structured. Then we're going to go through the process that you would follow to create a notebook and set up the sections, then share it, how you'll add notes, and then how you can export and email pages, sections, entire notebooks, and that type of thing. And then we'll pause for a final wrap up and additional questions. So what is OneNote 2013? It's a digital note-taking software from Microsoft. It's no cost. It used to be they used to charge for it, but now it's no cost to install on any device, including mobile devices. So if you have a Mac, if you have a PC, no problem. Either one will work. Mobile devices as well. There's a mobile app. It integrates with Outlook, Skype for Business, PowerPoint, and more. So we'll see this with meeting notes. It's really nice. You can pull in all the meeting information from Outlook and that type of thing. What's cool about OneNote is that multiple people can edit a notebook at the same time. We call that co-authoring. So it can be good for project meeting notes, and it can also be really great for team research. So if students are working in a team on a paper, they can create a notebook, and it allows them for a little bit more casual organization of their notes and pulling in resources. There's also this ability to sync notebooks between devices, but that's only when you store them in your personal OneDrive for Business online storage. So if you're not familiar with that, that's because KUIT is getting ready to announce it here very soon. So what it is, OneDrive for Business is similar to if you're used to using Google Docs. It's your personal storage that you access through My Community. And what it allows you to have is a terabyte of online storage, and there, the files that you store there, you can access from pretty much any device. So when you store your notebook in OneDrive for Business, as opposed to your local machine or a shared drive for your department, it allows for your notebooks to be easily updated and synced between devices, and also for you to share. So that's the next bullet. You can share really easily with both KU and non-KU contacts. So why use OneNote 2013? Here at KU, it's a really great tool to keep track of your personal projects and tasks. So if you were here for last week's webinar on email tips and tricks, I talked about how I use it to keep track of my weekly task list, as well as my project list, and all the action items I get from meetings. It's really great for meeting notes, so I'm just going to demonstrate this, and then we'll cover it again as we talk about meetings. But here, what I have are all my notebooks. I have the sample notebook set up for today's session. Across the top, I have sections, which is like tabs in a notebook. Along the right, I have our pages. So for today's meeting, just to show you how valuable it is, I can come up here to meeting details. I can choose this meeting. And it pulls in all of that meeting info as well as the attendance list. So we'll see here, I got to expand it. But I can see here everyone who's attended, and it's bringing in, in some cases, if I were just to post this link online, it would bring in those people too. So last week I just posted the link online. I got to see everyone who had attended, and it even checks you off for the people who are actually here versus the people I just sent out the meeting request to. So if this were our meeting, I could take my notes down here just to show you how great this is. Then I could come up here in the ribbon. I have this email page button, and just like that, it launches Outlook because it's integrated with Outlook, just as it's integrated with Skype for Business. and it's going to pull up an email, and who's going to be addressed in the email is everyone here who I've invited. So let me try that again. Here we go. For some reason it's hidden. So here I have everyone in the meeting. I have the meeting subject. I have the special option selected to send this page. That's an extra checkbox you can check. It also has a link to this notebook, which is stored in OneDrive, so anyone here could, click on this to see the web view. So you might have been, all of our IT project managers use OneNote and a bunch of other people in IT, so you might have been in a meeting with someone and wondered how they got those notes to you so fast. It's because they're using OneNote. Like I said, it's great for pulling together research with a team, or for pulling, if you're just researching a topic, it's really great. One thing that's cool is that when you pull in clips from the internet, from different web pages, it'll put a timestamp, but it will also put a link to that page. So you can do things that links to the thing that you're referencing, and it really helps you keep track of your notes. And then finally, like I mentioned, you can use this on your mobile device. So if you're someone who just goes to a meeting with an iPhone or an Android device, you can pull up the app, you can pull up that notebook that we were just looking at, and I'll show you here later some notes I added. You can add to-do items, you can add pictures, you can take a picture of the whiteboard if there was a great diagram, and you could add it right there in the notes without having to email it to yourself and insert it later. What I'm going to do is just talk a little bit about the organization. We're going to pause for questions, and then we're going to get into actually creating the notebook. All right, so notebooks. Here, what I'm showing here is the 2013 PC view. The other programs, it looks very similar. On the Mac side, it looks very similar. Here, you have your notebooks along the left. Like I mentioned, they're the highest level of organization, and they're also the level that you share at. So what I do, I have a personal notebook for my projects that I don't share. I have one set up for each project that I'm on. And actually, those ones the project manager usually sets up, and I just open up. We have one for our teams, so Tennille and I have one. We have a couple actually, but we have one for all of our meeting notes and that type of thing. And then if you're a student, you might have a new notebook for each course, or you might have one set up for each semester and then put all of your courses as different sections or tabs. I like to set up one for each course because sometimes, you're working with a group and your classmate is like, hey, you took really good notes in this class. Could I get a copy of your notes? Well, if you have all of your courses in one notebook, there's going to be a lot of stuff that's extraneous. So I like that because then I can just share that notebook with a classmate and they can see my notes. By default, your notebooks, if you go and launch OneNote now, or if you're already using OneNote, by default, when you create those notebooks, they're stored on your local machine. I'll talk about different ways you can share, but the cool thing is once we announce that OneDrive for Business, that will really give you more options as far as viewing those notebooks across multiple devices and sharing them with others. Okay, so we talked about the top level of organization's notebook. Then within the notebook, we have sections, and those are viewed as tabs across the top when you're clicked on your notebook. So just like a regular notebook has little tab dividers, same thing with your digital notebooks. Under each tab, you have one or multiple pages. With those pages, you can, the title of the page at the top of the page. So here, this statistics and practice area is the title that runs along here. So I'm going to pause there for any questions about, what OneNote is, basic organization of the notebook, that type of thing. Nothing so far? Okay, great. Well, we'll keep moving. We're going to go now into actually creating that notebook. And then sharing the notebook and adding notes. So what I have here is, I've already gone into my OneDrive for Business space. If you don't know about that, like I said, we're going to be announcing it soon, and so there'll be the directions there on how to log in and get started. But here in here in OneDrive for Business, these are all my personal files. And what I can do here is I can create new files straight from here. I can create a notebook right here from kind of the home screen of this. But I can also, what I like to do beforehand is set up a folder to put all my notebooks in. And I've done that here. So let me click over here. I've created a folder here called Notebooks so that I can stay a little bit organized and have all my notebooks in one place. So here, if I click there, I have a bunch of notebooks already created, but to create a new one, I would go New, and then OneNote Notebook. I have to give the notebook a title, so I'll say Fun, Cool, Example, Notebook. All right, I click OK, and what happens is I get taken to the Office 365 version of OneNote. So actually, I should have mentioned that with all the other options, besides the desktop software that's available on Mac or PC, besides the mobile version, you also have this browser-based version. So here, I can do a lot of the same things I can do in that desktop version. It's a little bit more pared down, but I have a lot of options there. Or if I want to now switch to the desktop version, the best way here is I can click on, there's a little option that says Open in OneNote here in the gray bar. I can click on that. And what it's going to do is it's going to mount this notebook in my desktop software, and it's going to open it there where I have the full options. If at any point you're doing this and you get something like this feature has been blocked by administrator, you just need to talk to your tech support staff. They need to make a change to your computer, and you should be able to do that. So now I have the Fun, Cool Example Notebook. By default, when I create that, I have one untitled section and one untitled page. So just a little bit before we get into adding notes about the interface, up here, just like in all Microsoft software, this area is called the ribbon. Along the left, we have this notebook navigation pane. One thing to note, if you ever see, sometimes it can be collapsed like this. I like to keep a list of all my notebooks open. If you want that, you can always click this drop down and pin it open using this push pin. That is a similar thing to this ribbon. If you've ever noticed sometime your ribbon becoming collapsed like this and you want to pin it open, you can click on any of these tabs and then click on this push pin over along the right to pin that open. All right, so here I have a list of all my notebooks. You might have noticed I have a lot of different notebooks, maybe like 30 different notebooks at this point, and they're not all listed here. What you can do here is you can close notebooks, and all that does is remove it from your every day-to-day desktop software view, and then you can always open it again. Clicking in this right bar here, you can say Open Notebook, and you can find that notebook. So just because a notebook isn't listed here doesn't mean it doesn't exist, or I guess it does exist even if it's not listed here. So Tennille and I created an example for this session. We called it Example for Quick Learn, and we shared it with each other. So what we have here is our sample notebook listed here. We have our sections already set up at the top. If you didn't have your section set up, you can create a new section by clicking the plus sign, and then you can add it here. So, you can start to add your sections, and then by default, each section will have an untitled page. One thing also to note, if you have your notebook expanded like this, you'll see your section names listed below your notebook name. Another thing you might notice is that some of this is bolded. When it's bolded, what that means is that Tennille has added a note and I haven't read it yet. So I can tell when someone else has added something and I haven't seen that yet because that will be bolded in the section title and the page title and the notebook title. So over here I have my pages. So, if I wanted to add a page under meeting notes, to do that, I would just add a page. It shows up here at the bottom. What I can do, is give the page a title. And all of a sudden that becomes the title that you see over here in the page navigation. Now there is an option with pages where I can do a little bit of organization here. I can drag a page under another page, and that's called a page group. And with that, I can collapse the page group and expand it if I start to get a lot of pages along the right. So from there, I want to talk about how to share this notebook, and then I want to talk about how to actually add notes. So before I talk about how to share the notebook, I need to show you a few things about sharing. So sharing your notebook. Who you can share your notebook with depends on where it's stored, because they need to have permission to that location where the notebook is stored. And when I'm talking about sharing, I'm not talking about I email you a page from my notebook. That's not sharing. Sharing is I want you to have full access to the notebook and to be able to update notes, make new notes, add sections, add pages. So in that case, that's true sharing. Here's the deal. The default location, if you just open OneNote now and click New Notebook, will be stored on your personal machine. And there, you can't actually share that notebook with anyone else because no one has access to your personal machine besides you. You could create it on your department drive, and there, people who have access to that drive could open that notebook, add notes, and that type of thing. So that's really great for your team meeting notes. If it's the same team, you know everyone has access already to your group drive, you can put it there. However, if you want to share with people internal or external to KU, and they're not necessarily all people who have access to that group drive, that's really when this OneDrive for business personal storage comes into handy. So there you can choose anyone. You can it can be internal or external to KU, and you can share those notebooks. Now, how you share it, you can do it in a couple ways, especially when you have it created in OneDrive for Business. But here, I can go to the Backstage, go to File, and I have a share option right here. So what I can do is I can say, share this. I'm already sharing it with Tennille, so maybe I could say my coworker, who's maybe here, JD. I could share it with JD. By default, he'll get an email message when I share this that has a link to the notebook. I can say can edit, or I could say can view. I'm going to leave it as default can edit, and it's going to require him to sign in order to, using his KU online ID and password in order to access this. So I can say share. When I do that, he becomes listed under here with shared with, so I can see all the people I've shared the notebook with. Because I've stored it in OneDrive, I can also just get a link and send that link to other people. So there's a couple options there. I'm going to pause now for some questions. So any questions there about creating that notebook and sharing it? Cool. No, okay, cool. All right, so let's get into adding notes. So a couple unique features about adding notes to OneNote. First, you don't need to save. Your updates are automatically saved regardless of where your notebook is stored. You can save that, you can save, or you don't have to hit the save button. They're just automatically updated. Also, something that's kind of unique to OneNote is that your notes will appear in what are called containers. So here, if I have some notes, I click over there. Here, I have some notes. I click over there. I can add a little drawing over here, that type of thing. And what's going to happen is it's going to place these things in different containers. Now, I can combine containers by holding down the Shift key and then dragging them on top of each other. This thing I don't think I can combine, but those are the containers. So let's just talk about adding content. So here, first and foremost, that meeting notes option is probably the thing that you're going to get the most benefit out of. And with that, it doesn't have to be a meeting that you scheduled. So oftentimes I'll be, attending a meeting, but it has to be on your Outlook calendar. And I'll say, oh, I need to write that down. In OneNote, you can come here and say meeting details. If the meeting's from today, you can choose that meeting. If it's not from today, there's an option here that says choose a meeting from another day. You can go there and you can cycle through your meetings, and you can add that meeting information there. I'm gonna go to one on Monday. So this is kind of a lame one because it's just a meeting and it's an appointment with myself, so it'll just be me there, but whatever. So with the meeting, what I'll often do here is add in notes of things, I want to remember. I might also need to note some things that I need to do. So I might create an area for action items. And so here, what you can do is you can use something called a tag. So the most popular tag here is called the to-do tag. So often I'll do this and I'll say, Susie, send out the session recording. That's a to-do item. So here I can start to build some to-do items. There's some pros and cons to this. The pro is that it's super easy to do. If you just add this to-do box, and as I go through, I can check them off. The cons are, first, if I have an action item here, if I'm meeting with Tennille and she's included here, and I have an action item for her, she'll need to be responsible for managing her own tasks, and she'll need to come here and check off her task. There is the ability for your personal tasks for you to say Outlook task and to flag this as a task for yourself. And what that will do is it will add it in Outlook under tasks. So here, send out session recording. Now I have it as a task in Outlook. The challenge here is if I want to assign this to Tennille, she would have to go in and tag it with Outlook task for it to show up in her Outlook tasks view, or I could, open up this task and assign it to her. I don't see a lot of people doing that because it creates an email. So now you have a notebook page with a to-do item that you're probably going to email out anyway. Then you have another email telling her that I'm assigning the task to her. So that's kind of the drawback. The pro also is that it's super easy, especially from your mobile device. So I created a simple to-do list here from my mobile device. I'll show you what that looks like. But these check boxes are just so easy to create, just to follow up with action items you need to take action on. And then, like I mentioned, the cool thing about those meeting notes is that when you go to email page, this isn't technically sharing the notebook. It does provide a link to the notebook. You can delete that if you don't really want them to update your notebook, but it's sharing the content of that page with anyone who's listed as a participant. We're going to talk more about tags, but I'm going to move on to some other things you can do here. So you can, under Insert, you have a lot of different options for adding notes. One thing you can do is you can, it's under here. So Tennille went through and added these, which is cool. So under here, you can add a file printout. So with that, what happens is you actually see the file, and this happens to be a PowerPoint file that's kind of set up like a flyer. And if it's only like, I don't know, maybe less than 3 slides, it will, show the file here, which I can always double click on and open, and then it will show those pages. If it's more than, I would say more than 3 pages or slides, what it will do is, like over here on the right, it breaks each slide out onto a new page. So here we have the different slides that are included. So how that was added, again, was by going to File, Print Out, choosing that file, and then clicking Open. One thing to note about, there's another option here, File Attachment. What that looks like is you just have these clickable files that you can launch from here. One thing to note about the file attachment and file printout is that once you put those things in here, they're no longer linked to the original file. So if I make a update to this presentation on our group drive, it won't update here. I'll have to, delete this attachment, and then I'll have to attach it again. So it can be really great with, meeting agendas that don't change after the fact because you had the meeting. Course slides, so your session slides for your class, they don't usually change after that class has taken place, so you can insert those slides there. Other things you can do, you can do screen clippings, which are kind of cool. So from different websites, you can do that. And there's also, you'll see the send to OneNote. So there's, you can do shortcuts using Windows N. You can start to send things from web pages and that type of thing to OneNote. You can also link to pages, files, like it says other notebooks. You can insert audio recordings or video recordings. I did this once with a few audio recordings. It worked great. You can also, pretty nice, create tables and insert tables. So I think I use this, I have a class one opened that I actually used for one of my classes, and that was really great for me because I had I think a table that the teacher had created on the on the chalkboard. I was able to transfer it here. I could have also taken a picture from my mobile phone, from my iPhone, and pasted it and put it in here as well. With recordings, like I mentioned, you can record things. You can do also here in drawing, you can do drawings. This can be good, especially if you have a touchpad with a stylus. So those of you, if you have a Surface 3, if you're one of those lucky people, you have the ability to just draw on your screen and create notes that way. If you have that Surface 3, you also have a really nice, it integrates so well with OneNote. You have a little clickable button on the end of your stylus that will launch OneNote anytime you want to take a note. The cool thing here that I honestly didn't know about when I was taking that stats class and wished that I had is that under insert you have different equations that you can add. It has symbols here, so I don't ever know where to find these symbols on the keyboard. You have those there, but you also have this cool thing that's Ink to Math. So for your math students, you can start to do simple-ish equations. And sometimes they come across right, sometimes they don't. So let's see. But basically you can start to do, things there. The next thing I wanted to show you in this adding notes section is just that mobile, and I took a few screenshots from my mobile device and added it to this notebook. So I have an iPhone, but I'm pretty sure that it works, on iPad, Android, it should work like a dream on Windows phones. But here, like I mentioned, I added that to do, but what I have here, so this is what the interface looks like. So it looks very similar to, this is the same notebook but pulled up on my iPhone. It looks very similar to the desktop version. To create a new note, you click on this plus sign here to create a new page basically, and you get some different options. So you get photo, list, or note. List is anytime I'm doing those to-do items. It just gives me these check boxes here where I can put in different text. Note, you can actually type in your notes, and then photo is pretty nice. I used photo and I took a picture of this handout here, so I was able to do that. And I inserted all of these images on this page by using photo. So you're able to take a photo right then or search through your library. So really cool. Again, that's only possible if your notebooks are stored in that OneDrive for Business storage space. So we sort of touched on it a little bit, that idea with those tags, but I want to just talk about it a little bit more because this tags area is what gives OneNote a lot of power. So I mentioned the to-do items, which is probably the most popular. But there's also other things. So if you're taking notes and you have a really great idea, you can come here and you can say, that was a great idea. So there's a little light bulb. There's a ton here. So, I need to schedule a meeting with this person. That's a book to read. All those things that you want to come back to and find, you can tag them here, and you can create custom tags. So if you want, you can kind of identify something, make it a new tag. So something that's like action item for my pet dog. Just make it, assign it whatever you want it to look like. Click OK, click OK. And so then if it's go for a walk, I can just tag it with that custom tag. So then why does that matter? Well, the cool thing about OneNote is you can come here and say find tags. And with that, you can find tags just in, here it has some search options. So this is looking in this entire section, but I can look just in this page group, and it just shows me the tags here in this page group. So putting this in practice, you have a notebook, you have a tab just like this that's called meeting notes, and then each week you have your action items and you have, ideas, that type of thing. If you are the supervisor and you want to get an idea of what action items you have out there, you can come here to your section with your meeting notes. You can show this section. So it's going to show some attendance stuff that we can get rid of later, but it's going to show all of your to-do items. Then what you can do is you can create a summary page. And what this does is it creates a new page here. Because I don't have a title on it, it's defaulting to the first thing, summary page. And then I can see, like, I want to get rid of all this attendance stuff because I don't really care about that. But then I can start to see these are the ideas. These are, to-do items that have an Outlook flag that there's no date. These are just to-do tags. And I can start to see all the things that are left out there for people to do. Now there's some repeat things here, so that exist on multiple pages, so they're showing up multiple times. The thing about the summary page is it creates a copy of your to-do items. So if I leave the summary page here and I create another summary page, it's going to duplicate all of these. So anyway, tags, great thing to use. They can really help with keeping track of those items that can easily get lost. Before we go to co-authoring, I want to show you a couple more things here about adding notes and kind of your notebooks. So I mentioned that a lot of this stuff is possible as far as sharing because they're stored on OneDrive. If you want to see where a notebook is stored, you can always right-click on the notebook name and see the properties. And there you can see where the location is, and you can change the location. Now, if you're sharing this notebook with a bunch of people, that could be a little bit tricky because you'll want to make sure everyone knows where that new location is and maybe even send out the link again. But that's there. If I don't like the color of this notebook and I want to change it to another color or retitle it, I can do all that there. The other thing is, if I want to take this summary page and I want to move it to a new notebook, I can drag it over and then make sure I have to stay on that notebook long enough to find the section I want it in and drop it there. And that will now be in that notebook. Or I can right click and do move or copy, and I could create a copy of it. So I do this with my weekly to-do list. Every week I make a copy of the previous week, take off the stuff that I did, leave the stuff that I didn't do, and add some more things to it. Okay, so one last thing with 2 questions. Okay, cool. Let's pause for questions.
Okay, so the first question is from Danielle, and she's just wondering if you can show again at the end of the class, at the end of the presentation, how to save the notebook on OneDrive for Business again so that it can be accessed from mobile devices. And then the next question is from Alan Humphrey, and he's asking, can you create a customized template within OneNote?
Okay, great. Those are both great questions. Okay, so customized template, that's a great thing that you brought up. I actually decided to drop it because I didn't know if it would be relevant for anyone. But here, under Insert, you have a full list of different page templates that comes with OneNote. So that's under Insert if you do Page Templates. Here I see my different page templates. I can choose, from the different page templates. Or if I have my own page, I can come down here and say Create New Page Template and save the current page as a template. Now I have to be honest, I've actually never done this, so I don't know if there's any best practices there about like clearing out. You probably want to clear out some of this information before you save it as a template. But there it is. You can create custom ones and save them there. So what do I have? My templates. I have an untitled page and I can do save template. So yeah, it looks like you want to clear out all this stuff first before you save that. Great question. And then yeah, I will show, should I show it now? Maybe I'll show it at the end like you suggested, Danielle, how to create that notebook again so that it exists in OneDrive for Business. All right, so I did want to touch on another thing, which is, like I mentioned, that co-authoring. If you're sharing your notebook with someone else, how to tell, looking at notes that other people add. Like I mentioned, these are bolded because I haven't read them yet. And here, I can see Tennille, FTA, her initials there because she added these notes. And if I hover over that, cool, I get even more information. I can see last modified this morning. I also see, it integrates with Skype for Business, so if I wanted to, if I saw she was available, I could send her an instant message and ask her about these changes. You have even more options than that if you come to the History tab here. You can start to do jump around to see, what's the next unread thing. So you can start to do that, and you can start to mark things as read. If I know now what this is, I can select these, and I can mark as read. Also really cool, I can see recent edits. What are the edits made in the last 7 days? It's going to be everything, because we just created this yesterday. Let me close some of these. Also, find by author. Over here, I can search in this notebook for the changes that Tennille made. So these are all the things that she added. If I want to get rid of those initials, that's here too. Hide authors so that I don't see that. Pages have histories. I can go back to another version. So I can look at those different versions and I can revert back to another version. So that's there. The last thing we just have to talk about is sharing pages and exporting to another format. So like I mentioned, you can always email a page. You don't have to, if you don't want someone to actually come into the notebook and add their own notes, you can always just email that page. And here, it has the handouts attached. I can just send that to whomever. Another option I have, again, if I don't want someone to come to this notebook and make changes, under File, under Export, I have a bunch of different options that I can export just the page, the entire section, or the entire notebook as. I remember I worked with one group who was, they were using a OneNote notebook to start to gather all the documentation they needed to pass a certain kind of like audit. It wasn't like a really formal audit. It was like the certain type of audit about their program. So what they were able to do is more casually create an organization or structure, and then different people would go in and add the documentation needed for those different areas. And then what's more, they added custom tags. So they added tags for things that still needed to be reviewed or still needed to be done or still needed to be added to. So then they could do that summary and see what they still needed to finish for the audit. And then they exported it to a Word doc. I'm sure you'd have to do some cleanup depending on, what kind of notes you add, that type of thing, but that's possible in Word, and you can export it to Word. Okay, so I want to show you that again about creating those notebooks in OneDrive. So if you already have access to OneDrive, like I mentioned, it's all available through my community, and what I like to show people is just starting here, starting from OneDrive so that you know that's where your notebook is. So here in OneDrive, I'm in my notebooks folder. I can just say new OneNote notebook. It forces me to create a cool and unusual title. I'm doing that so I can remember which ones to delete. I'm taken here to the web view that I can always use to set up my notebook initially. But if I want to go ahead and mount that and open it in the full desktop, then the easiest way to do that is you have this option here, Open in OneNote. So when I click on that, it will go ahead and open and kind of mount that notebook in my desktop software. So here's my create a cool unusual title. You probably remembered that every new notebook comes with an untitled section and an untitled page, so I can start to create my new sections with my different tabs and that type of thing. I do have like an example course notebook set up here that I used for a course, and what I found that I liked here was I had my lecture notes, reading notes, assignments, others. I've been doing some research to make some suggestions for students, and one suggested this: calendar and syllabus, lecture notes, notes on assignments, and then classmate info, so they can start to get things, the classmates that they usually work with, their information documented there. Alright, so that is the final slide of our slideshow. So any final questions that you have?